Hi, my name's Jim Kroll. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Taoti Creative. We're putting together a three-part limited video series on the future of association websites. And for us, that's about designing and developing a member-driven experience. So the first video part is going to be with Brandon Schmidtling, who's the Director of User Experience at Taoti. He's going to talk about really what is a member-driven experience, why it's important for associations going forward. The second video, I'm going to be joined by Weldon Perry. He's the information director at AMI, which is the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation. He's going to talk about their current project, which is about creating a member-driven experience, how associations are adapting to it, and what they're doing to be able to get this project going. And then the third video is going to be with Justin. He's Toyoti's VP of Development. He's going to talk about the technology behind creating a member-driven experience. So let's get right into it. Brandon, hello. How are you today?
Hi there. Glad to be here.
Well, we're excited to talk to you today about this kind of vision for where associations are going. So let's just kind of start off. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm Brandon. I like to say I solve business challenges with design. I've worn a lot of hats over the years, designer, developer, researcher, and now a little bit of a hybrid product designer and manager. And I've had the pleasure of working with really ambitious brands and organizations, and I really enjoy their challenging innovation efforts. It's where I've put my focus on recently, and that's what's important to users and members.
Um, Given that background and things that you've done before, talk to me about what you're doing here at Toyota today.
Yeah, with Taoti, I'm looking after the UX team, the user experience team. I'm guiding the research and the design discipline, and I'm really emphasizing measurable impact that we can measure and see. And that includes all the discovery activities where we uncover what designers sometimes call the dark matter of a project, as well as things like the production of prototypes um, and wireframes that carry our shared learnings all the way from the start to the end of the design process.
When we think about the future of where websites are going, especially for associations, what are some of the trends that you're seeing? You're working with associations all the time. Talk to me about some of the things that you're seeing in the future as of websites for them.
Yeah, the biggest thing right now is that associations are trying more than ever to lead the narrative on news and social media. And we've been designing pages and sites that help them communicate that more quickly and keep pace with the news cycle. That's included feed based experiences to deliver updates and community activities, um, and also trying to increase their ROI. So, novel ways of mixing sponsorships with content like branded areas of the page. Also, the important lifeblood of a website, which is how do you get feedback? We have a couple of components that are really popular among associations lately that collect feedback on individual pages that we can use to make these improvements. And also, new surfaces that bring personalization into the site by default and offer that as a benefit. This personalization can be based on season or life milestone or, things that can change like roles and identities. And finally, a lot of associations that we're working with, they're using the redesign as an excuse to bypass older platforms and make them headless. So an example might be maybe they have a platform for selling products like training, and they want to pull out those products and mix them up. They want to display them in a better or more natural way so that it lives on their main site.
So I don't know. That's like I think four or five different things that you're seeing with association websites. One of the things you kind of talked about was like this personalization. That's kind of what we're talking about today. We're talking about kind of creating that real member-driven experience. Talk to me a little bit more about that. What is that? How does that kind of end up working?
Yeah. The simplest version of this, and probably the most provocative, is just recognizing if your organization is too internally facing or set up for the convenience and the activities of your staff or your leadership, and turning your approach on its head. Figuring out, what your members need and want and solving their problems first with technology. In this case, it's your website, but it could also be other digital channels. I think the more diplomatic version of member driven experience is your org can keep doing what it does already, and it needs to start providing a more legible set of service options for your members that starts with the things they do the most. And thankfully, there's this core set of activities that benefit both you and your members, you being your internal stakeholders. And we always start with those because of the value of win-win. We want to do something for both parties. You can call it reducing friction or unlocking pent-up user needs, but often the hardest part of this approach is the mental part. The mindset of your internal stakeholders can be set in such a way that the various decisions that led you to this point and the way that you're communicating on your website, they seem non-negotiable. But member-driven experience means being able to unite the platforms that seem disconnected, removing what you don't need, and putting more of these actions in the hands of your members.
So from like a what I'll call like a brass tack standpoint, talk to me about like
Mhm.
what like how does it actually end up working? How do you kind of break down these barriers that you've talked about and use technology to kind of unite and drive this?
Yeah, let's get into some of these examples. So, all that data you have about your members in your CRM, we just start using it throughout your website. We know at least a couple things before a member is even logged in. We know their location, we know their language, and we can generally use this to make decisions about their region and their content preferences. And we make this transparent. We show in the site that these decisions are already being personalized for them. This is a big step forward because it's a member benefit in action. From there, it's clear that login is valuable and continues this personalization. And so we just offer multiple places to easily log in without leaving the page. And once you're logged in, that data that you already have, we use it. We use the job title, the events they've participated in, the things they've shown interest in. These can all become filters. They're either visible or invisible. The member can always see the work being done. That's what we suggest. They can turn it on or off. They can reset it if they've made changes. And we've taken it a step further. We've created an area where all of the influences on their personalization, it's easy for them to see and control it. And this matters most on pages that speak to the value and the relevancy of their membership. So on member benefit pages, we automatically show them the top benefits for them to make sure that they know and they can find them. On the product pages, we recommend things like the trainings or standards or whatever materials they need next to continue their professional journey. And certainly, when renewal time comes around, we automatically surface those call outs and reminders based on the date. The idea of a dashboard, I know some of you are thinking that it isn't dead. It's just that we also want the other pages in the site to do this work of personalization.
Kind of remember, I don't know, maybe it was like 10 years ago where a lot of times associations would come to us and they'd say, "Hey, listen, we want to have gated content. We want to have either an area of the site or we want to have different pieces of content that are gated only for members." How is this kind of personalized experience a little bit different from gated content that was popular a while ago?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's true that the activities and the content I'm talking about, they're all behind a login. But that approach is still very much if you build it, they will come or they will log in. And what we've seen is that you know there's a lot of stuff, and not all of it is relevant. A common situation you might recognize is an org or an association will typically add services through platforms, graphing them on uh, one at a time over time until you arrive at a situation where there's 5 to 10 different tools. They're each doing different things. Maybe they're united through a common login, okay, but how you access them is not clear. They're moving at different speeds. Their features are underutilized. Now you have this big ecosystem, a lot of complexity. Member driven experience is abstracting all of that and recombining it into personalized activities that are relevant to members. Things members need to do, and more importantly, the things you need them to do, they're not just behind a login, but they're right here on the page in a dashboard, certainly, but also being recommended as the next action. maybe at the top of a list or in the main navigation. The watchword here is relevant. Relevant. It's another word for personalization, which you get to with a gated approach, but with relevant, we challenge ourselves to figure out, what we need to take from that gated area and where we need to move it and where members need to see it so that they're, encouraged to make it part of their journey.
So we kind of started this conversation. We talked about your years of experience and how you've had a lot of great insights into different projects and work with a different, large variety of different organizations. Talk to me about, I guess, the why. Why do you feel like this is kind of the trend? This is where association websites are going.
Yeah, I had a little bit of time to think about this. I think there's three main reasons. There's the current expectation, there's the pressure from leadership, and there's this crisis of authority. The first is the expectation. Member-driven experiences is just how the internet works. I mean, personalization is prevalent, and users expect this now. It's because they're using technology that has prioritized the KYC, the Know Your Customer, because it's highly beneficial to organizations that do this. The second is leadership pressure, pressuring you, pressuring the org to be relevant and more efficient and focused on metrics. Leaders know what's possible. They're asking for marketing teams and tech teams to work together and align on priorities. Sometimes they're shifting, but they're priorities nonetheless. And third is this big question about how associations continue or even do their work now in this environment of uncertainty and outright crisis. Um, as respectfully as it's possible for me to be, uh, the inward-looking nature of legacy organizations, this interest in preservation and status quo, it can be a strength, and no two organizations are alike. But this tendency can also be a weakness. We are in a time when groups who have stated authority have become a bit disconnected from those they represent, and there's a massive unmet expectation because of that. People have unlimited ways to express themselves and get their needs met by those who could lead them astray. Associations have to step up, retake their position, offer a strong vision of the future, and this means being highly relevant and reasserting their value to current and future members.
So when we think about these challenges, right, which you kind of talked a little bit about, you're talking about kind of this relevancy and kind of leadership pressure. What are some of the other challenges that you're seeing associations have when implementing some of these more member driven experiences?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency to start thinking too big. Maybe one person is in charge of writing a scope and they include everything but the kitchen sink. And the initiative that just dies a quick death because there's no internal buy-in or it's just too scary. That's why we suggest moving in phases with foundational moves leading to waves of improvements. You could also be in a situation where you're stuck with legacy systems. Getting locked into a platform is also something I see a lot. A lot of orgs are using a large CRM like Salesforce that requires high level of expertise, and it can be difficult to understand just what's possible or how to use it to identify value for members. We want associations to understand that these are not intractable situations because there's always a way to unbundle or extract data and create connections so that the end results can be elegant and a clean space despite what's kind of happening behind the scenes. And I guess a third problem I see is often just no clear mandate. It's no secret that the biggest challenges orgs face is decision making. No one wants to make the call. Sometimes leadership doesn't know how to decide. And so things get delayed and decisions get put in the hands of people who are at a disadvantage. It takes an internal effort to align a team who will lead this member driven experience. And sometimes, working with an outside group like Taoti to provide the impetus and the regular cadence. And frankly, the pressure to make decisions is a welcome move.
You kind of talked a little bit about some of the challenges that associations face. So, what do you think what do you think associations can do now in order to kind of be a part of this more member driven future that we're laying out?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I touched a bit on this, briefly earlier, but I mean, it's super clear that associations need to present just a compelling vision of the future, and not enough to just talk about yourselves, however normal and good natured that may be. Um, we, you know, we need to do as much as we can for members and future members and be seen as member focused, present and active along at least, seasonal touch points and maybe even more around weekly or daily activities. But in terms of, immediately executional things for more member driven experiences, I think there's a couple things that you could get started doing. One is just make a map of all the services and all the offerings and all the materials you have and start relating them using a taxonomy or, some categories that reflect the kinds of members you already have, maybe the members you want in the future. This way you have the start of a plan for who gets what recommendations. This is also part of making your organization legible to your members. And it's also the start of a large language model. For anybody who's interested in getting into AI features later on, you're going to need this collection. The second thing is decide what systems and platforms you want to take this content from. Lightly investigate, how you can pull from them. If you already have a way of doing that, that's great. Usually that's through an API. But if not, it's not a deal breaker. There's usually a way to do it. Taoti developers are real experts at this. And third is really get good at finding out what matters most to your members. The things they're doing, like I said, daily, weekly, monthly, and even the big tentpole events and moments. These are your triggers for engagement, and you can translate these directly into features and pages and actions that show up in your new site.
All right, you had to bring up AI, and talking a little bit about that when it comes to mapping some things. So I guess my last question to you is, how do you imagine AI kind of shaping what this member-driven experience will be in the future? Or if you can.
Yeah, everyone has a take on this, right? But what I've seen is generative AI is going to make it easier to do things like write copy, crystallize messaging, and the fill gaps that have usually been a barrier. Uh, your association staff already wears so many hats, and being able to just generate copy and content is going to speed up your whole ability, your collective ability to make materials, publish news, and generally express your perspective, maybe even in a faster way to keep up with the news cycle. I've also worked on AI projects recently where, you know, AI has been ethically and safely trained on a large amount of member data as well as association material, which can then be used to identify insights and trends and really suggest ideas to association admins on what to say, what to share, how to engage members. This is the kind of deep learning combined with generative AI that I think is the most useful thing so far. So it's associations being able to combine what they already have with what their users are signaling to them they are interested in, and being able to quickly generate engagement opportunities through emails, feeds, and other touch points without waiting.
Awesome. All right, Brandon, thank you for taking time out of your schedule today. It's always good to connect. We're gonna have our second video come out in the next couple of weeks. That's gonna be with Weldon from Amy, and he's gonna talk and provide the association's point of view about how they are implementing a member-driven experience and some things that they are doing to end up preparing for that future. So, Brandon, thank you, and we will talk soon.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.